Hey everybody, it's Tea Time with the Diva. Grab your tea, grab your coffee, because we're going to get into it. This Tea Time is dedicated to Diddy and the Diddy trial. And listen, there's questions like, will he get up on the stand and testify? To try to save his own life. What happened to victim three, Gina? And how does one just get to refuse to answer a subpoena? So there's a lot of questions. We have them, at least I have them. So you know what? Let's go ahead and get right into this story. I will say this. We're going to see soon how this defense is going to try to defend Diddy, because the prosecution, and I believe they're scheduled to rest their case between today and tomorrow. So that would mean by Thursday, Diddy's defense team is up. Will Sean Combs testify, and other burning questions we still have? What happened to victim three? Where's victim three? What will Combs' defense be? Will his oft-mentioned chief of staff, Kristina Khorram, take the stand? Time will tell, right? With Sean Combs' trafficking and racketeering trial entering its sixth week, much of the closely guarded case is now public record. Jurors have sat through days of highly emotional testimony from two principal alleged victims, Cassandra Cassie Ventura and recent ex-girlfriend, testifying under the pseudonym Jane. In disturbing detail, the woman described Combs feeding them substances and stage directing them through days-long marathons with male escorts. The woman said Combs threatened to release their intimate videos or yank financial support if they resisted. Both described Combs turning violent, breaking down doors, and giving them black eyes. Jurors listed as one former assistant said Combs kidnapped her at Pow Pow Point, and another said he raped her in a staff bunk bed at his home. They heard Kid Cudi describe Combs as a Marvel supervillain who broke into his house, opened his holiday gifts, and allegedly later firebombed his Porsche in 2012. They watched a hotel security guard describe how Combs handed him $100,000 stuffed in a paper bag to buy and bury a video of Combs viciously beating Ventura at the LA Intercontinental Hotel in 2016. While prosecutors have pieced together much of the evidence they say should land Combs in prison for life, Combs' defense has yet to set the stage, and many questions remain. Rolling Stone reached out to experts and poured over transcripts to get some clarity on some of the biggest, still lingering unknowns. Will Sean Combs testify? I think it's a bad idea, but he wants to testify. What will his lawyers do? Throughout the trial, Combs has been visibly engaged, leaning forward, passing notes to his lawyers, and even nodding so vigorously in the direction of the jurors, the judge threatened expulsion from the courtroom. Combs also has a history of speaking up when the legal chips are down. He testified in his own defense at the 2001 trial over charges he brandished a pow pow during a pow powing in Manhattan nightclub, leading to an acquittal. I didn't know he testified for himself in that case. After CNN released damning video last year showing him kicking and dragging Victoria at the Intercontinental Hotel, he responded within 48 hours, releasing a lengthy video apology, making no excuses. He clearly likes to share his thoughts. I'm sure Combs wants to testify. I'm also sure his lawyers are telling him that would be a terrible idea. David Ring, a plaintiff's lawyer who represented the Italian actress whose testimony led to Harvey Weinstein's conviction in California, tells Rolling Stone. Experts say Combs taking the stand is extremely risky. That's extremely risky, because it could open the floodgates to testimony about a long list of alleged prior bad acts that otherwise would not come out. In her opening statement, defense lawyer Tenny Geragos sounded fully resigned to any charm offensive being pointless. Sean Combs had a bad temper, she told the jurors, predicting they would consider him a jerk and say to themselves, wow, he is really a bad boyfriend. The defense position, she said, was that he is not charged with being mean. He's charged with running a racketeering enterprise, a charge Combs denies. Usually, when you're a celebrity, you get on the stand and the jury falls in love with you. They're not going to fall in love with him. It's too late for that. Ring said. The jury already hates him. They might not convict him, but they hate him. So for him to get on the stand is not going to change their opinion of him. If he does testify, experts said he's likely he would be on the stand for more than a week. The way the trial is running, such testimony would push any verdict beyond the 4th of July. Jurors previously heard their service likely will wrap up in time for the holiday. Mm-mm. Why haven't we heard of anyone else being charged? When Cohn's indictment was first unsealed last September, his online court docket referred to him as Still Defendant One. Many speculated that meant others would be charged, but it's still under wraps. That's not necessarily the case, experts tell Rolling Stone. Echoing Dave Chappelle's viral Saturday Night Live joke last January, where the comedian said he knew things were bad for Combs because they got this guy in a RICO case by himself. Esper said it's not only possible, but even likely Combs will be the only one charged, which to me is crazy, right? I thought with RICO, it had to be others. It had to be an enterprise. A lot of these people who are functioning as part of the government's theory, the allegedly corrupt enterprise, they worked under Combs. They allegedly were doing things at his direction. Elise, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, tells Rolling Stones. She says it's possible, though looking less likely by the day, the prosecutors may still undisclosed top secret deals where people pleaded to lesser charges or avoided charges altogether in exchange for their cooperation. These deals can be common with co-conspirators whose testimony is needed or whose experience also involved being victimized by the main target of an investigation. Two former assistants of Combs, George Kaplan and Jonathan Perez, already have testified under grants of immunity. She says many of the alleged crimes listed as predicate acts in Combs' indictment, such as bribery and arson, had charging windows that are now closed. It's possible prosecutors' only option was to bring an actual RICO charge to file anything against the people under Combs, she says, and maybe they lack the evidence for that. Or maybe they have been interviewed, but they weren't granted immunity. So they are in a holding pattern because they're not going to get up on the stand, she says. Those involved could invoke their Fifth Amendment right to not testify. There has to be a conspiracy, but the government doesn't have to charge the other co-conspirators, Ring says. I doubt anyone else will be charged, which is interesting. Ring says Combs security has assistance. The people who allegedly carried substances for him and those that set up freak-offs could all qualify as co-conspirators without being charged. He adds that charging them could actually backfire. When people cut a deal and they take the stand, it's fair game for the defense to question their credibility because, hey, they took a deal and got something in exchange for their testimony, he says. Okay, I can see how that would be so. Well, Kristina Khorram testified. Kristina, also known as KK, started working for Combs in 2013 and became his longtime chief of staff. In a 2021 Facebook post, Combs called her his right hand, claiming he couldn't function without her. Prosecutors didn't name Khorram in their opening. Instead, they were general, saying Combs relied on his inner circle, including chief of staff, to run all aspects of his life. On June 5th, prosecutors got more specific, doubling Khorram 38 as agent and co-conspirator. Jurors have heard Khorram's name over and over. Ventura says she communicated with Khorram every day, adding that Khorram knew Combs was physically abusive. She said Khorram reached out directly after the Intercontinental incident to say Combs was looking for her. Indeed, it was on Khorram's seized devices that investigators found the photo ID for the hotel security guards linked to the $100,000 bribe for Combs. One of the guards testified it was Khorram who called repeatedly and showed up to the hotel's lobby looking for him before the deal was brokered. For her part, Jane testified Khorram encouraged her to smuggle substances for Combs in her checked luggage. It's fine. I do it all the time, Khorram allegedly said. Jane also claimed Khorram booked her travel for the so-called hotel nights. Her name has come up so much during the trial. If she's not put on the stand, the jury will be wondering, where's Kristina? Addison tells Rolling Stone she could have some of the highest evidentiary value here in terms of proving the alleged conspiracy. On Friday, prosecutors hinted they would rest their case this week without calling quorum. They listed their final witness as Cohn's former assistant, Brandon Paul, a law enforcement officer, and three summary witnesses. If she's not called, it could be she's too risky, and the prosecutors are worried her testimony will cut favorably to Diddy, Addison says. Or it could be that they're not giving her immunity, and she has a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Experts who spoke to Rolling Stones say that Khorram's high-level position is also possible she's a target. Maybe she's been charged and we don't know it because it's sealed, Addison says. That's just in the range of possibilities, but less likely. What do we know about Combs' defense? From the moment Combs' arrest, his defense team has painted the government's case as a broad abuse of power, coming into his bedroom, scrutinizing his personal sex life, and deeming it as criminal. They've been open that Combs is polyamorous, engaged in kinky sex, was a jealous lover, and part of a swingers lifestyle. They also readily admitted there were episodes of DV, particularly in Combs' decade-long relationship with Ventura. But they're adamant that Cohn's conduct and perhaps taboo sexual preferences do not equate to the serious charges he's facing. DV is not sex trafficking, Garrico said in her opening statement. That argument will likely be prominent as the defense presents its case later this week or early next week. Combs' defense team has also raised questions about his former girlfriend's roles in these toxic dynamics. The alleged victims who will testify in this case are capable, strong adult women, Garrico said. They all had the personal responsibility and the freedom to make choices that they made. Cohn's all-star defense team has also grilled witnesses on their motives, particularly those related to financial gain. They've elicited testimony from several of Cohn's former employees who raised the mogul's brilliance and can't stop, won't stop work ethic, suggesting that due to the nature of the Combs' around-the-clock schedule, his personal life inherently meshed with his business duties. They said the blurred lines don't constitute conspiring to run a criminal enterprise. While those are just some of the defenses Combs' side has offered during the prosecution's case, his team has kept a tight lid on who he might call to the stand. They only revealed they plan to call Dr. Sasha Barday, a psychiatrist, to review the testimony of the government witness Dawn Hughes, who testified about SA, coercive control, and the intimate partner violence. Now, what happened to victim number 3 and victim number 5? Shortly before the expected 8-week trial commenced, a long whisper about women identified as victim 3 vanished from the prosecutor's case. The woman first emerged in a second superseding indictment against Combs in March. So, since that was the second superseding indictment in March, and she didn't testify, why isn't that superseding indictment dropped? Unlike Ventura and Jane, victim 3 wasn't connected to a specific trafficking charge. Instead, she was mentioned under the racketeering conspiracy count. The government alleged Combs lured the woman into his orbit under the pretense of a romantic relationship and used physical violence, threats, financial control, and coercion to allegedly compel her to engage in commercial acts known as freak-offs. In late April, just a few weeks before the trial start, the woman agreed to testify under her real name. But on the eve of the trial, prosecutors reported difficulties in contacting the woman and her attorney, later stating that she would no longer testify. The government would confirm victim 3 as Gina, one of Combs' girlfriends who has been in an on-off relationship with him since around 2015. Her name has continuously surfaced during the trial, with Ventura admitting that Gina was a source of contention in her decade-long relationship with Combs, a refrain echoed by Joan, who dated Combs from 2021 until his September arrest. One of Combs' former assistants, Joyce Kaplan, alleged he observed a fight between Combs and Gina in which Combs hurled apples at her, and Gina later yelled to be let out of Combs' Miami mansion in the middle of the night. But prosecutors lost their bid to include a text conversation between Combs and his former head of security, who issued a dire warning to Combs that he could go to jail if word leaked about an apparent violent incident between the couple in October 2015 in Atlanta. Ooh. If anyone called the police is 100% going to lock you, the security member allegedly texted Combs, even if she begs them not to. It's the law. So once they put the cuffs on you, your life and career is over. It's still unclear if another alleged victim, victim 5, will take the stand. Prosecutors haven't mentioned the person in any publicly filed documents, but Combs' defense attorneys objected to portions of their testimony in a heavily redacted filing. The judge ruled any testimony from the alleged victim had to be narrowly tailored. Who's victim 5? 6, how have any of the civil lawsuits played a role in the criminal case? As Combs faces up to life in prison if convicted, he's also facing another legal crisis on the civil front, to say the least. In the wake of Ventura's pivotal November 2023 filing, a tidal wave of more than 50 women and men have claimed the larger-than-life mogul abused and sexually preyed on them over 3 decades. While more than a dozen of the civil suits include accusations of SA that overlap with the Southern District of New York prosecutors' timeframe of the alleged racketeering conspiracy, 2004 until 2024, the load of filings have barely played a role in the criminal case. Only the testimonies of fashion designer Brianna Banner and former Bad Boy artist Dawn Richard have come into the trial so far. Although both women alleged sexual misconduct by Combs, prosecutors essentially used their testimonies to boost corroboration of Ventura's claims that Combs would unleash brutal attacks on her. Richard testified that on her first day recording the 2010 Diddy Dirty Money album, Last Train to Paris, she saw Combs attempt to hit Ventura with a frying pan, dragging her to an upstairs bedroom by her hair because he was upset about how she was cooling his eggs. Richard was not permitted to discuss her separate personal claims against Combs, claiming he sexually harassed and groped her and once ordered one of his executives to lock her in a freezing car for hours after speaking back to Combs. Banner, who forged a close relationship with Ventura in 2015, claimed she saw the lengths to which Combs would go to attempt to control Ventura, incessantly blowing her up on a phone and monitoring her location. She said she routinely observed bruises on Ventura and allegedly saw Combs once hurl a knife in his girlfriend's direction after showing up to her apartment unprompted. But unlike Richard, Banner was able to testify more about her personal experience with Combs. She claimed he once called himself the devil and warned he could kill her. She claimed the powerful music executive also almost dangled her over Ventura's 17th floor balcony, yelling, "You know what the F you did." The government used the alleged incident as evidence that Combs' abuse of Ventura was boundless, spreading to her closest friends when he flew into a rage. They also suggested and reinforced Ventura's fear of Combs and kept her trapped in the decade-long relationship. Oh, good God. It's a summary of everything that went on in the courtroom with Combs in this case so far. Do I think he should testify? No, I think it's going to backfire on him. I think that, yes, he testified in previous cases and maybe it won him victory. But he got to remember, once the defense asks you questions, the prosecution is going to be able to ask you questions. And I think that's going to be his biggest downfall. So he should sit there, shut up, let the defense team do what he's paying them to do, because the minute he gets on that stand, he's going to help every hole that the prosecution missed when they was presenting their case. He's going to help them fill it in and get himself locked up for life. Anyway, guys, chat with me in the comments, and when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a video, you will be notified. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. 1, where's victim 3? Who's victim number 5? And do you think this man should get on this stage, on this, I'm saying the stage, on the stand and testify on his own behalf? Thanks for watching. Hit the like button. I'll see you on the next video.